All right. Hello to everybody watching both live, and if you join in a few minutes, hello to you as well. And if you're watching this recorded back after the event, then hello to you as well. I am Steve Goodman, and today I'm talking to you about how to do live events a slightly different way when you're using Microsoft Teams. So I think for folks like us, um, Teams is pretty good. I'm using one of the newest features here that's just came out, that standout mode. I bet a lot of sessions today have used that as well. But I'm going to really sort of change gears to a slightly different way of doing this for you, where if you're looking to be able to extend your reach of Teams events, then this is going to be a really good way to do it. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, first of all, just going to refresh all of you as to what Teams can do out of the box for things like live events, and what is there out there on the market that you could choose instead. So are there other technologies people are using to do live events, much like this one that you're watching now, and what's the experience like with those in comparison to Teams? If we're being absolutely honest about this and putting our allegiances to technology slightly aside, and also, what are these things that we're talking about? We talked about Teams, obviously, but what's NDI and what is OBS? So lots of acronyms today. And by the end of the session, none of these will be confusing for you, hopefully, at all. So I'm going to kick off now and talk a little bit about what you've got out of the box. So we obviously know what you're in at the moment is a Teams meeting, right? So I don't need to show you what that looks like. You're in it at the moment. But we've had some newer functionality that's came into Teams more recently, such as Teams webinars, which is a slightly different take on doing live events to the ones that we've had in the past. And Teams webinars work in a slightly different way. This isn't a session about Teams webinars, but they allow us to create a meeting that has a registration form. So another way that Microsoft put this is structured meetings. So you can create a new meeting as a webinar, and it has a sign-up page that you can provide to participants. And then it has statistics that you can have a look at the end. And that is Microsoft's way of competing with a lot of these traditional webinar platforms where lots and lots of businesses do want a fairly straightforward way of being able to organize a live event or a webinar for customers or internal learning and get people to register on a system that they entirely control. And then you've got Teams live events, which is different and has effectively grown out of what was the Skype broadcast meetings, where live events are aimed at much larger audiences that are planning to attend an event. However, the Teams live events do require somebody to use the Teams client, much like the webinars, to be able to access that. And they're slightly more restrictive in the model that they work in, the features that are available as well. So they're not perfect for everything. For example, if you were streaming a Teams live event, then you certainly wouldn't stream a live band presenting in it. You would do it for perhaps a water cooler event or a CEO update. But if you were perhaps looking to do public outreach, or you're a school looking to broadcast the play because the parents can't attend, then live events sort of make sense, but they're just not that great, because they do require that Teams client or a modern PC with a web browser to be able to access and view it. They're not built into the same platform, and they lack all that same flexibility you might get with a structured meeting, where you can't, as a presenter or producer, see so easily the people that have joined anonymously to that and are asking questions. But they do provide a better experience when it comes to things like webinars, A Teams live event instead does allow you to restrict who can perhaps speak up in the meeting or who can ask a question out loud. You've got that structure to prevent what people can do. Now, those three models are pretty good, but things move very quickly in this market, and I think the way that people are watching sessions like this now. So at the moment, there's fewer people watching this over Teams that watch it on demand. There's a different model of wanting to watch virtual conferences because we've all seen so many events like this over time, and you need to be able to do something a little bit different. So you're left with a choice of either using Teams or looking for something different. And if it was me and I wasn't using Teams today, then I have to be completely honest. I would be looking at what are the technologies there are on the market that I might use. So I would be looking at technologies like StreamYard, for example. You will see online a lot of Microsoft employees have started using that because it's simple, it's easy. So you'll see a lot of these Azure focused people who will be using StreamYard as the platform that they will engage with their viewers. And if you're using tools like or platforms like LinkedIn, Facebook Live, Twitter, Twitch to engage with your audience, then Teams is a barrier to getting people to attend. For example, if you put out an event on Microsoft's own service, LinkedIn, you set up an event on there, then it won't natively bring in a Teams live event or a Teams meeting into that. It won't interface with the comments as they come through. So you need to use something that talks the same language as these other streaming platforms as well. And that's where things like StreamYard, Restream.io come in as simple to use technologies that aren't necessarily as good as Teams. They don't provide as good user experience either. However, they are a little bit more straightforward to plug in to the other side to this. So I'm not going to say in this session how they're bad and how you shouldn't use them. Really, it's looking for another way of being able to do this that gives you effectively the best of both worlds. So first of all, what is NDI? So NDI is a technology that you'll have seen in use. However, you won't necessarily know that you've seen it being used. It stands for Network Device Interface, and a company called Newtek. I think back in the Amiga days, they were the company responsible for the video toaster, and they made a big move into TV. And of course, over the last 20 plus years, they've become something of a standard for bringing in computerized technology and vision mixers into professional broadcasters up to your normal big, for example, in the UK, BBC, ITV, and so on, down to corporate events as well. So they provide this equipment that allows you to bring in different types of input, live feeds, cameras, screen sharing, and also third-party platforms as well. So, if you're watching the news and they brought somebody in over Zoom, then in the earlier days of 2020, you'd see the Zoom window. But today they might be brought in. You won't see that. You'll see them like a live stream. That you won't see the border of the window showing, because this technology, this NDI, and their commercial broadcast devices like the TriCaster are designed to bring that content in, and they also do that vision mixing part as well. So there's an output that goes into broadcast equipment. And Skype was one of those early technologies that came into that. So when Skype was a big thing, Skype and Newtek worked together to allow Skype to be able to plug in. So their equipment would sign into a Skype account. And after that point, then somebody could be dialed out or dial in to Skype over the NDI technology, and there'd be a guest on the show. Now, in 2018, Microsoft brought that same technology to the Skype client. So the modern Windows 10 Skype client pick it apart. It's very much like some of the underpinnings for Teams, for voice and video. So you might be surprised to hear that, but it's true. So if you have a look at the files inside the Skype client itself, then you'll see that it has the same client libraries that are used for capturing video from the client and then sending it. It is effectively using that same set of protocols. So when Teams got NDI, it's still the same. It's effectively the same set of underlying, I guess, forked libraries that are used in the Skype client. But if you compare notes between the two clients, you'll see that they're very, very similar in the way that they work. So that meant that when NDI came to Teams, it was already, widely in use. This wasn't a new technology. This was something that broadcasters, YouTubers, all sorts of people are using. So if you go online, you'll see loads of guides on how do I do my interview over Skype using NDI, loads of guidance on that. So not an unusual thing. However, when we're looking at it in the free Skype client, then it always has a Skype logo in the bottom of the window, like a big advert there all the time as we use it. Now, the NDI protocol itself is effectively sitting in between the client when it's showing the video on the screen for us and the underlying receiver of the video. So those libraries that are used inside the Skype and Teams client to receive video, then they've got a hook inside them that allows that video stream that's either outgoing from your local client or incoming or coming in for screen sharing as well, or together mode, those streams that come in, it fishes those out and presents those so that they can be captured either locally or so they can be captured over a network because it's designed to work over a gigabit network, but also works quite well locally as well. And when you've got the software that can see this, you can do things with it. So you could, at its simplest, use it as a very advanced way of capturing the video from a meeting. So, for example, if you were doing a podcast or a video and you're pre-recording it, then you could use OBS to capture that video and then format it. And that brings us to OBS. And OBS is one of several tools on the market that are free and available and easy to use. There's commercial products as well. But OBS, and there's a version of it called Streamlabs. I think Logitech bought them, and it's a flashier version of OBS, basically. To be honest, I don't use it. It seems to perform a little worse, but it has better features for integrating with platforms like Twitch and built-in templates and so on. Well, these are effectively the de facto software that people use. So if you are doing any sort of a broadcast on a service like Twitch, then it's very, very likely that you'd use OBS or you'd use XSplit or one of these few similar products that are used to do this. And this has become such a thing that a lot of the technology on the market today that is used by streamers, and some of you will probably have these as well for Teams meetings and so on. This technology is integrated with a lot of the tools. So, for example, this here, I'll put it somewhere where you can see it. This is what I use for a lot of my recorders. I don't use it really for Teams meetings, even though I've got a big Teams button in the middle. But this allows us to automate actions on the PC, stuff like that. They've got native OBS integrations, meaning that if you're using this technology like OBS, then you've got all the buttons at your fingertips to control your lighting, to control your stream and what is being shown at one time. So very sort of cool stuff. But it is more for advanced users rather than the basic sort of Streamlabs users as well. Now, OBS itself, you can see on the screen there, what this is, I've moved my head out of the way, you can see, you'll see it yourself in a moment. Then this is basically a piece of software that allows us to compose what the output video is going to look like on the screen. So we can arrange this so that we've got several scenes. They're the different things that we can switch between for people to see. And then within each scene, we have our collection of sources. And the sources themselves are the pieces that make up the video. And those pieces will include the NDI source, where if we're bringing in a video of me and a video of all the other participants in the meeting, this is where we'll select them, add them in, and arrange that video itself. And we'll also add in other things we might want. So on this example here, then what you'll see is we've got the ability to use other videos in this as well. So if I drag that over so you can see it live, then if I go into this on my Stream Deck podcast, and then you can switch between the different things. So for example, there's an intro here. And then we've got a studio mode where if you were doing this live, then you might have the next thing that's going to show up, and then you transition the two across. And then at the end of that, then we transition the out. So really sort of cool stuff. And it just makes it a lot easier when you're building and making videos. Now, if you're using this for your Teams meetings, then we've got to do a few more things to make that work. And that's what I'm going to show you in just a moment. But you know what? Why are we going to use this, right? So let's have a look at some of these. So first of all, you know, we want to try and make it easy for people to see. So if you're talking to their business and they're saying, oh, we want to buy some sort of technology, we want to get out there on LinkedIn, we want to get out speaking to our customers on Facebook Live, then this is the way to do it. It isn't to post a link onto Facebook and say, join our Teams meeting tomorrow at 5 p.m. The irony that I'm in one now, it's that there's nothing wrong with Teams meetings, but if you're perhaps a local government, you know, a local council, and you're trying to do engagement with your with your constituents, perhaps you are the police and you want to do a live Q&A with them, or perhaps you are a widget company and you're selling these to businesses, and you rely on relationships over LinkedIn, then these are the places that people will go. This is where your audience is. So rather than trying to drag them off the platform, then it's making it more accessible for them, and trying to make it work with third-party services as well. You know, so if you are running a corporate event, then that's different from doing a Microsoft 365 event, because when we're doing a Microsoft 365 event, then there's one big difference, right? Everybody here, everybody that's going to watch this knows the technology. They know how to join a Teams meeting. You know, if you're joining CloudEight, then the first session of the day is not how to join a Teams meeting. You know how to do it. You've got the client installed. However, corporate events, you know, can be very, very different. There's a marketing team that want all of that polish. They want to provide an attendee experience. They want it to be really great for people who are going to join those events. They want a streamlined process. They want videos interspersed throughout the day. They want to be able to engage with the audience. They also want to track engagement, you know, more closely than perhaps Teams or Teams live events can do as well. And they might want to be able to integrate that with their own marketing platforms too. So there is a goal from a company to be able to try and differentiate what they're doing with their competitors, and especially with the last year of webinars and events, then you've got to provide a better experience. Why would people come and join your event? And if that is because it is a much better to consume platform, perhaps there's buttons that pop up throughout the day to get swag sent out to you. I know that this is the kind of thing that people might need to do to differentiate what they're doing, and you're not really going to build that purely inside Microsoft 365. It's a bit like having a tool belt, and you've got to use the best tool for the job. Some of those will be on your tool belt, but sometimes you're looking, you're like, I need a socket set. I've got this spanner, it's kind of will work, but it's really going to be a bit of a faff. I'm going to have to go out and get a socket set. You've got to use the right tool for the job. And there's also Microsoft 365 focused reasons. So we like Microsoft 365, right? You know, if you're here, then it's very likely that your company, your employer has made an investment in the platform. And you want to get the most out of that licensing, right? So that if you're going to speak to your marketing team and they say, can Teams do this thing that we want? They've talked about their corporate event and give me a button for swag, and they've had a demo from a company that's going to produce it. It's going to be a beautiful experience. It's going to be as if they're in person. It's going to be beautiful. And they say, oh, you know, we like that. What can Teams do? Then you don't want to be caught short and say, well, you know, the meetings you have every day, 6 meetings, 8 meetings you have, we can do that. Or how's about we do a live event? People can ask questions. We won't know whether they were watching for the whole period and who was who, but we can do that. Well, you know, my experience has been they don't. Our marketing teams, they do want more. They'll be looking at the market. They know this industry very well. They know what people, their customers want. That's their job. So it gives us the opportunity to be able to bring the best things of Teams in, make best use of our licensing as well. And that other part to it, that's the thing that always comes up. So when I see people doing these events and they're using a third-party platform, then I will see that, you know, people who join the event, especially if they've been using things like Teams, they've been using advanced meeting technology, they've had the best of everything available to them, and now they can't blur the background, so they've got all the mess behind them. You know, they haven't got the ability to change the background or put a corporate logo on it. So the piles of washing in the background, you know, need to be quickly moved out of the way. It's always a bit of a pain, isn't it? But if your normal setup that works day to day is with Teams, is the thing you're going to use for these, then your employees, the people inside the business, the experts that are going to be brought in to talk, they're not going to have a disjointed experience, because although the joining of a live event that's going out onto, say, LinkedIn Live, although that's quite smooth for the viewer, you know, they get their phone, they open it up, they go to Facebook, they see live stream, you know, my favorite brand, click on it and watch, comment away. That's great. But if you are the person who's been asked to come and talk at that event, you join it and you pick the wrong microphone. You know, you're doing it in the browser and it's picked your webcam microphone instead of the good microphone that always works with Teams. Things like that, you know, don't contribute to a great experience, and that should be a concern, you know, of yours, if you're thinking about how this is going to work, you know, with your marketing team, because there's the downside to using simple to set up and simple to integrate solutions, and that's, well, it's going to be harder for everybody else who's going to join internally. And if you're doing internal events, then you've got the live events option, right, which is really good. However, for organizations with a lot of first line workers, for example, Yammer has another option inside it as well, where we can do our live streams via that. And this is an opportunity where you can use the Microsoft Stream Yammer experience, because you can use you can set this technology to use an RTSP endpoint, a place that it's going to go to, and do a better version of a Yammer focused, you know, Microsoft 365 authenticated internal live event, where instead of the event being solely produced over Teams with comments over Teams, then you do have some of those other options, and they're there already. This is up leveling those, really, where our stream is going to come from OBS with NDI, but comments, chat, all the stuff that goes alongside it, likes, super likes, loves, all of that stuff over Yammer is going to come in over that technology. So it's got in that built-in, secure, compliant commenting experience, better engagement tracking as well inside Stream, and you've got access to that underlying video much more easily as well. Plus the ability to record it locally for the best possible quality as you go along. So great stuff there around the licensing, you know, being able to integrate with other things like streaming, Yammer, do it better inside Microsoft 365, give your event a slightly different spin, and make it easy for employees as well. So we got that, and the next part is how do we set this up? So I'm going to leave this on screen as I jump between this to demo some of this for you. So I'm going to go into the Teams Admin Center. So inside Microsoft 365, I'm inside my demo tenant, and I'm going to go to the Teams Admin Center, the tag here. So let's go in through this. Now, it's quite straightforward to set up. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to configure who can, or set everybody to be able to use the NDI capabilities. So if I go down to meetings and meeting policies, then you'll see here, then I can either create a new policy and then assign that to people, or I can use this group, the global policy, and set this to allow NDI streaming. So this is off by default. And if I switch it on, then on my global policy, then everybody assigned to that global policy will be able to do this over Teams. They'll be able to set up and use these NDI capabilities. So it might not be something you want to enable for everybody, and instead you might want to create a new policy. Marketing team. Like that. Give them all of the normal things that they should have, if you allow it, of course. You'll probably want them to be able to share the screen as well if they're going to do this, or perhaps just a window. But of course, you know, anonymous people aren't going to be joined to this. That's not important. You'll want people to be able to override who's going to present to the meeting as well. If it's the marketing team setting this up, you probably don't want everybody to be able to just join from the organization. You don't want them to slip in to your event because they've seen it on a calendar. Only the invited people can come in, and of course we'll want to be able to enable NDI for the meeting as well, of course. So once that's applied, you know, this is one of these policies, doesn't take a long time to set up, then this is going to be available to users. But that's not all we need, right? We need to be able to actually stream to somewhere. So as an example here, then I'm using Restreamio. So if we want to make it so we've got a little bit more control over what comes in from the marketing team, for example, then we can use a third-party service that sits in the middle. And the use of this is we're going to be able to use something like Restreamio to create a single place that OBS will stream to, and then we can restream to multiple services at once, or pick the one that it's going to go out to. So, for example, Restreamio, this is, first of all, a good example of all the places that OBS can go to as well. So you could either configure it to directly post to one of these services, or you could set this up to go straight to our public pages on Facebook or LinkedIn for streaming. So for the purposes of our demo today, then I'm just using Restreamio. Other things are available. You know, this is one of those competitor products in a way where it's got its own live studio. Again, if you've not seen how these technologies work, then basically, well, they can be a bit of a pain, but we're very much reliant on people being able to accept the prompts in the right place to allow camera and microphone. This didn't prompt us here because I've used it before, but it's completely browser based, but lacks all of that finesse that we get with other technologies. So I'm going to leave that as it is. I'm not going to go live to my Twitter, though I could just by switching this on, toggle them all, or I'll go live on my Facebook. My family will not appreciate that. But I've also got in here this RTMP settings, and that's giving me a key that I'm going to be able to use. So you won't see this here, but this allows us to stream straight from OBS using the key that's set here into this service. And I've set that up in advance. So next, what do we have to do? So on the broadcast PC, we need to install OBS and OBS NDI on the machine itself. So I'm going to jump onto this VM here. So this is already partly set up and waiting for us. So this is it's a meeting and a meeting. So virtual machines at the ready. So for example, for this, I've got virtual cameras here, simply so I can wave at you here as well. Oh, it's just there he is. Me. But we've got two parts to this, and that's and I won't read out the exact links, but OBS and OBS's NDI piece. So OBS comes with its default plugins, but we need to add our own to make it work. So once OBS is installed, then we add in the NDI plugin, and then that installs an NDI SDK. That SDK allows us to see the streams, but it's just really these two bits. This is the two core components that somebody needs to be able to install to actually get started. So we've installed it. Now we need to think about how we're going to create some scenes to use. Now the thing about the way that OBS works is when we're using NDI, then to create our scenes, then we need to be able to actually see the things that we're going to compose. So you'll need to do it either two ways. You'll need to either do a test meeting with your internal marketing team or with a colleague to be able to set this up, see what the meeting looks like. And then at the beginning of the meeting before you start, then you might need to either, if you didn't do it with the same people, you need to go back in and reconfigure it ever so slightly. So if I go onto this these scenes here, then what I've got on the screen at the moment is I've got an intro scene, and then I'm going to have some speakers, together mode, and the screen itself. So to do this, I'm going to need to, I've got my background set up here. This is an image, view it, unview it. I'll just pick the CloudEight logo here. Then from the list here, I've got a choice of NDI source. So if I call this NDI 1, you can call it what you want. Then I've got a drop down. There's nothing in it. There's nothing in it. I can't pick anything. So you know, what do I do with that? Well, not much, because there's nothing it can do. So if I delete that, I'm going to go back into this in just a second, and I need to go in. I need to actually make this work. So we have to sort of skip ahead ever so slightly. So I'm skipping ahead just a little bit, and you're going to see I need to do a couple of things here. I need to enable NDI permissions in the Teams client that we're going to use for broadcast. So that relies on the policy that we've set up being in place. And we need to enable NDI broadcast in the meeting itself, which is going to begin the broadcast for us. So I've already switched this on here, but if you haven't, then you'll need to, and effectively you've got to do this each time you launch it, to be frank. So if you launch the Teams client, then you'll need to go in to settings, and then in the settings tab, go down to permissions, and inside there we switch on NDI. Now that enables the NDI libraries in the client itself, in Teams. And then in our meeting itself, then we'll need to actually broadcast it over NDI. So in this scenario, we've got several speakers. We've got these are videos, but they're static. I'm actually using OBS the other way around on these virtual machines to bring in my video, and well, to bring in their video on server in the garage, and I'm going to say that it's a Dell Vance that's the person presenting this. Maybe she's joined by one of these people as well, but we've also got a few other folks that might join us for a panel session later in the session itself. And me, I'm here as the producer, so I can see the shared screen. She's also talking about NDI. She loves it too, and I need to press broadcast over NDI. And I need to do that to actually set this up. So when I press broadcast and nothing actually happens, it's I press broadcast over NDI. What will happen the first time you press it in the meeting, it'll show all the participants a little warning so that they know that this is being broadcast over NDI and their content could go anywhere. But now that's up and running, I could either use OBS on the client itself. So on this, on my machine here, on my virtual machine, I can launch OBS. And once that's launched, then I've got access to the local streams in here. And I'll have access to my local video. I'll have access to all the participants' video as well. I've also got the ability to do this over the local network though as well. So I'm going to do this over the network because it's exactly the same as what you'll see inside the OBS client itself, where I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to pick NDI source. So this is on my PC, not that virtual machine that you saw me in. And now, even though I'm on my AAC DTO1 machine, then I can see that this machine on the same LAN segment as me has the list of all of the speakers. So the active speaker, the person that's talking at that time, if I just want to make it automatically flip between whoever's speaking. And I've also got the other people in here as well. So what I can then do is I can go and create a source for each of these. So I'm going to pick Adele from this. And if I press OK, allow hardware acceleration, then I will rename this actually to Adele. Now, you'll see what's coming across here is it's not the highest quality video, is it? So, for example, if I go back into that virtual machine. Oh, okay, thank you. That's the best time ever to do that. All right. And if I go on to Adele and I pin her video here, then you'll see it ever so briefly changed the size of the video that was showing on the screen. Now that's something you need to watch. So this is really important here. So what we need to do is go into transform. So we right click on that video, either on it, or I go Adele, I'll right click and then I go to transform and I edit the transform. So what I want to do here is stretch it to bounds. I can either do inner bounds or outer bounds, or width of bounds. And if I set no bounds, then that's going to give us complete flexibility on how that moves around. And then stretch to bounds, center, and what I'm going to do, I can set that to whatever I want. So if, for example, we want this to be side by side, then I could choose, I've got the option to crop. So I could crop them in the middle using that crop left and crop right. Or I could, if I just want to have them side by side, as you might in most of these meetings, then I'll pick 1920 divided by 4. So 480. And what's 1080 divided by 4, 270. Or if I want that to be a little bit bigger, 1920 divided by 2, 960 by 540. And then whether she's running 1080p video or not, then that's always going to put that in the right place. And of course, we can supplement this with borders. We can put an image behind it. We can do all sorts of things to make this look better if we want to. So if I go in then and do the same again, and add another NDI source, then I'll pick my second person. And let's go for Alex. Again, you can pick what you want. If I pick Alex from this, then Alex popped up. So it's going for the native side. This might change depending on the resolution of his video, just to sort of give you an idea of what this looks like when it changes. If I go in, and this will sort of highlight why you need to avoid this, why you need to be careful of this problem. Watch Alex ever so quite closely as I choose pin. He may change. So if I choose, let's see, on my Teams window to spotlight his video, then that might absolutely change the way that he's going to show as well. So it didn't do it, so I'm not going to dwell on that. However, what you will see is if you just leave them like this, then they'll change depending on the resolution that's being transmitted. So it's quite important to choose how you do this. What was that? 960 by 540. Okay, and then just arrange these as we want them on the screen here. So CloudEight, and of course this is where what I might then do next is go into this, and then I could add some text as well. So this is the beauty of it, right? So add a session title, and this can be whatever you want. You can pick the colors that this is going to be. So if we want this to be white, you can of course have a logo over it as well. So let's say corporate event. Don't you love them? All right, and then drop this here. And now, if we simply want to start this, then we can do so. So just to show you how quickly we've done this, it's taken us 5 minutes, probably, well, 10 minutes less than it's taken us to perhaps set up and make our video streams or organize things in a competing technology. I press start streaming, then that's going to connect, and that's technically live. So if I go into Restream.io, then you'll see that's going right now. That's live to the viewer. And if we were in studio mode, then this is where what I could do is I'll put one here and one here just to show you. What we could do is we could have our intro seed up front and leave it like that, and then say, coming up in 5 minutes is our corporate event, and then transition across. And then a few seconds later, then that's going to show to all the viewers in LinkedIn Live or wherever we're streaming it to. So I'm going to stop streaming that for a second and point out some stuff that you need to know about. So each of these streams is going to have the full complement of audio. So this will have Alex as well in the meeting, even though I've just got Adele. So all of her audio will show on this screen. Will be heard in the audio feed. So it's really important to understand that, because you don't want there to be a problem with the way that the audio sounds. So make sure you do a test run, listen to it, and remember you only need one of those feeds to show. Now there's some other things that'll be of interest, which is what happens if we're doing together mode. So if I go back into my Teams client, where I'm slightly regretting pressing that button there, but you can see it, I think. Together mode, I've not got enough people. I need another person in the meeting. I'm not going to try. Shall I? Let's go into meeting options. All right, let's do a quick one, and we'll just drop me into the meeting. So we're up to 5. Continue on the browser. Right, okay, there we go. One more person in, and right, if I switch on together mode, then what this is going to do is when I jump over to the client, then things are going to look slightly different. So in speakers, then if I haven't got those people pinned, then it might not show these, but I need to go in and I need to add that scene in here. So if I go into this and I add an NDI source, then I should be able to pick together mode from this. From the list down here, and that's going to bring in that together mode view that we can bring across. So again, edit the transform for this, stretch to bounds 1920 by 1080. Just conscious of time, we will be finishing in just a second. So if you were doing a panel session or something like that, then you could do together mode there, and got the ability. It's really simple to put these together inside OBS to change that. So if I want to change that and also have my panel with the shared screen, then I drop in another source. I'll call it screen share, and then I can pick from this list the shared screen. Now, where is that on my list? Together mode. I'm not going to attempt to do that now. I'll have to have a look at that. But the key thing being, if we want to swap over to a panel session, then we can do that here. And one of these things that it's going to remind me of is going to be Getchas. So if I switch back to gallery view now, then remember, if you were in this, then that's suddenly going to go back to that screen there because it's no longer sharing it. But if I've got my speakers here, and I'm doing my screen share, so get that off there. So move that across. If I go into this and drop down, then my screen share has disappeared. And I cannot tell you why. But the last part of this, of course, is talking to you about the Getchas, and the screen share generally should work fine. I have no idea why it's not. So I'll come back into that at a different date because everything was going perfectly with my Russian doll of different Teams clients all running inside a meeting, and inside a meeting. So right, to finish off now, I just want to talk through. So what can we broadcast? So we can do those live video streams in gallery view, or we can pick between together mode, and we can, I promise you, share the screen. I'm not going to go back in and see if I need to reshare the screen here. I feel extremely tempted to do so, but I know that we're running slightly over to time. And the big question is where we're going to broadcast from. So what you've seen here is I can broadcast from the presenter's PC here, right? So I can do this. I can broadcast from the person presenting. Also, if you're the producer joining the meeting, like Adele was the person who was presenting to our meeting. Adele was in this virtual machine here, sharing her screen. That might be why. What's going on? That PC's locked up. So Adele was in here sharing a screen into the meeting. Now that means that when we've been sharing this model, then what I've been doing is I've been working as the producer. So Adele just joined the meeting, and if I was Adele, all I've had to do is come into here, and I have. Whoa, this virtual machine is slow. All I've needed to do as Adele is go into here and share the screen, share the desktop to the meeting, talk into the meeting itself, and then as a producer, then I've done the rest, right? I've done the rest in here as the producer of the meeting. There's the shared screen. It was my virtual machine having a bit of a slow day. So here we go. I've got Adele there. Let's pop this over to the other one as well. Again, can arrange that as we like, and perhaps have them again, side by side or in the corner. So that this is the generally sort of cool thing about this. We can arrange this how we want. We can make it look as good as we need. But if we're the producer of the meeting itself, then that's where as the producer of this, then we're able to let them get on with it while we do all of the vision mixing on our side, rather than they having to do it. And there we go. We can see it's working properly here. Hello, and that's that's what we should expect it to work like. But as you've seen, I've used another PC running on the same network segment for this to work, and that's pretty important. Finally, a few gotchas to watch for. If you're doing this and you've got a lot of people talking or multiple people talk, then you'll know that sometimes Teams moves out of gallery view some of the people that aren't talking. So pin the video in the meeting for the people you're capturing to make sure that they remain live in the meeting itself. And if you're switching between all of these different views, then that could well change what's actually going to be captured. So although it looks fine here, then if I go and change one of these to local, then what may well happen is it doesn't actually show me live speaking. So it's a known limitation. Appears to be working now, so it may have changed, but it's according to Microsoft, if you're switching between the two different views, then you need to be conscious that not everybody is going to be visible. So be very careful about that sort of switch if you're doing a panel view and then you're doing individual speaker views as well. Here it's working fine, but that should be a gotcha to watch for. And remember, as I showed you there, each of those video streams, it's got the full meeting audio. And make sure that you test between your different scenes, listen to the audio, make sure it all works fine as well. Because you don't want perhaps two audio streams to overlap. One thing that I've also seen and found with this is sometimes the video and audio can get slightly out of sync and then get back together. That's common to a lot of these streaming solutions as well, so you need to watch out for that. And the performance matters of the machine too. So it's great if you've got virtual machines and powerful setup. If you've got a dedicated machine as well, but a small laptop, Surface Go is not really going to cut the mustard. So, PC like this, great, right? It's not an expensive PC. However, this PC is running a lower end graphics card, hard to get hold of, unfortunately, at the moment. But I'm using the same PC, both as my virtual machine running on it. It's broadcasting at the moment. It's doing the stream to Restreamio, which is, is great, right? It's doing all of this at once. But you wouldn't expect somebody's normal desktop or laptop to be able to do that. One of the reasons why it's able to do it in this way is because it's able to offload a lot of the GPU tasks. So if I go back into the preferences for OBS and I go to stream and output, then you'll see I can't change this because it's actually mid-streaming, but it's using a hardware encoder, and this is the NVIDIA encoder, and different hardware has different versions of it. There's a slightly newer version of that encoder built into, I think, the GTX 1660S and above, and the RTX GPUs as well have a newer set of encoding, which makes it faster and better. But when you're doing that, then you're either going to need a laptop that allows an external GPU to be plugged in, or you're going to need a dedicated desktop PC, and that kit is harder to come by. However, if you're using a virtual machine somewhere else, running on a server, running on something that's not going to affect the performance of the local PC, then you're going to have a better experience, because then you're splitting that load between the machine that's streaming and the other machine. Bandwidth, of course, this is going to be streaming out, so we're not going to see lag or latency on the outbound stream, or at least we shouldn't. However, because you're pushing perhaps 1080p video up and out, as well as coordinating that meeting, then you might see issues here. So, another technique with a virtual machine can be use a VM somewhere else. Use a machine in Azure with, if you want, perhaps an NVIDIA GPU added to it, or just a reasonably powerful machine that can then be inside your meeting, but it's outside the bounds of your network as well. So run over just a couple of minutes on the session today, but I'm going to finish off now and just leave you with a few little details if you need it. If you want to find me on Twitter, you'll find me at Steve Goodman. And you may have heard this if you've been watching all throughout today and heard Jay Wynn's session earlier. I do the All About 365 podcast with Jay and Steve, and you'll find that at allabout365.com. I also write for petri.com and write usually about all of the latest Teams news. You'll find an article on this very topic on there. And you'll also find me doing videos, podcasts and articles at practical365.com, where I'm chief editor for all of the videos and audio. And of course, do a regular podcast every 2 weeks with Paul Robichaud. And in the day job, I'm off today, which is great. It's half term in the UK, but normally I will be at work as principal technology strategist at Content and Cloud, who are Microsoft Gold Partner, based in the UK. We've got offices all over the world: New York, South Africa, London, Manchester, and I think Milton Keynes. So we're all over the place. If you need us, but my role there, I help with not only things like this on the user adoption side, technical stuff as well, but also on bigger Microsoft 365 projects where perhaps this is one of many things that might be helping add value to a big Microsoft 365 program, amongst other stuff as well. So thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And if you're watching online, then hit me up as well if you want to ask more questions. I'm going to stay around for our remaining viewers today for a couple of minutes, but thanks very much for watching.